And just when I perfected my dance to the last countdown, Joe goes and makes that one. That is a good time. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse, and welcome to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time, and I know we do have a few groups that is the case for, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And never has that been more evident than this May. This is the most epic month we have ever done as an organization. It has been so much fun. So whether you've joined us for one of our, I think, 35 plus regular scheduled programs, this is our last of the month, and I'll highlight what it's all about in a minute. Maybe you tuned in for our Global BioFest, which we ran last weekend, which is not only our biggest program ever, but to my knowledge, the largest conservation program of any kind ever. We ran 150 broadcasts over 72 straight hours, featuring people from over 50 countries in every single continent on this planet, highlighting conservation stories in action. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out, check out the website, see our awesome list of speakers and our schedule, and see the ever being populated one by one programs that we're bringing up to our YouTube channel as well. Also, of course, many of our teachers, in fact, several of the ones here today with us, are part of our Backyard Bio Global Nature campaign. So we are encouraging the public, and especially kids, get out, be mindful, observe and look and listen to all the wildlife that's close to you. Take a picture of it, draw it, and share it with us. We've been connecting classrooms around the world for a love of nature. Hopefully you guys get a chance to get out and explore near you after this broadcast. But I don't want to steal our thunder of our fantastic speaker today. Coming back for the second time and highlighting a really unique and fantastic conservation program himself is Lucas Meers. So today, we are not going to talk about tigers. We're not going to talk about sharks or whales or all those big charismatic creatures that you guys might know and love in your classrooms. We are going to talk about Okapi. They are fantastic. They're a creature that a lot of people have never heard of and maybe never even seen in any pictures. And so I think it's an especially fun opportunity to highlight why they're so cool, some of the threats they face, and what we are doing as a society to protect them. So without further ado, Lucas, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Jesse.
Nice to have you here. This is so much fun. It's so nice to have you back to wrap up May. You are the capstone to our beautiful month.
I didn't know that I was the last one. I feel like that adds a lot of pressure to my presentation.
Oh, so much pressure. And 100 plus classes that registered.
That's exciting. That's almost double than last time. That's really exciting.
We're doing it. Next time, you know what? We're going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And
yes.
Everyone in North America will tune in. Well,
excellent. I love it.
I'll leave it to you to take us away.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jesse, and thank you for the staff at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants for having me. This is a super fun program. I really love the whole idea of exploring by the seat of your pants, and I love getting to connect with a lot of people around the world. Like Jesse said, there's 100 classes registered for this, people in Italy, all over Canada and the United States. I am based in the United States, but I go over to Africa and the Democratic Republic of the Congo every year to work with our staff over there and work to protect the endangered Okapi. So I am going to share my screen, and I have several slides and videos to kind of go through. Are we good? Can you see? Jesse?
We are all set. Take us away.
Perfect. Excellent. So like Jesse said, my name is Lucas Meers. I am the Conservation Program Officer for the Okapi Conservation Project, and we work to protect the endangered Okapi and its habitat in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So the Okapi looks similar to a horse. It has stripes, kind of like a zebra. Typically, when people do see Okapi, they think that they're related to zebras, but in fact, they're the closest living relative to the giraffe. In fact, evolutionarily speaking, they are the oldest living giraffid, or member of the giraffe family, and they're only found in the dense rainforests of Democratic Republic of the Congo. There's several similarities between the two animals, the giraffe and the Okapi. One, for instance, is the ossicones, the horn-like projections on their head. Those are part of their skull. They're bony and they're covered with skin and fur. In giraffes, males and females have ossicones, but in Okapi, only the males have those ossicones. So that's an easy way to tell the males and the females apart. If it's a younger male, it's a little bit hard to tell because he doesn't have his ossicones yet. But as they grow older, the ossicones do become a lot more pronounced, and you can easily tell a male from a female. But they are the closest living relative to the giraffe. They're really not related to zebras at all, even though they have stripes. I always tell people that tigers have stripes, but they're not related to tigers. So a coat pattern doesn't necessarily mean any sort of genetic relatability. And so they're only found in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in the very, very dense rainforests. And I'm talking dense. When you walk through these rainforests, you can really only see 10 or 20 feet in front of you. And I have a video later on to show you. But the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or the DRC for short, is one of the most biodiverse countries on the entire planet. In fact, it's the most biodiverse country, arguably the most biodiverse country in Africa. They have everything from leopards, forest elephants, incredible amounts of bird species, 600 different species of butterflies, 17 different species of primates, forest buffalo. They're in just an incredible diversity of species in the entire country, in the dense forests. And so it's a very, very remote location. This video I took actually on one of our small puddle jumper planes. A puddle jumper plane is a plane that really only has 4 seats, including the pilot. So it's a very tiny plane. It's a very, very remote area where we work, which benefits the animals because there's not that many people living in these dense areas, dense stretches of rainforest. And it takes several days to actually get to Congo from Jacksonville, Florida, where I am. I typically have a layover in Europe, and then I fly to Uganda. I overnight in Uganda, do a little bit of driving, and then we take a few small planes to actually get to our location in the Okapi Wildlife Reserve in Ipulu. So in that video, you could see that the canopy was widespread, and that creates kind of a huge cover over the entire forest. And it's a closed canopy forest, which means very little light actually reaches the forest floor. And you can see through in this photo where the sunlight is piercing through the trees. And that really helps with the camouflage of the Okapi. And so these stripes on their behinds and on their legs are thought to serve 2 purposes. There's a few different theories on what their purpose serves. One absolutely is camouflage, and you can see in this video. This is one of our camera trap videos, and the Okapi is walking away from the camera, and it gets 10, 20 feet away, and then once it stops moving, it just disappears into the forest. It's an incredible way to break up the body pattern. And then it's also thought, theorized, that the stripes are also, they nickname them follow me stripes because sometimes they think it's easier for the Okapi calves, the babies, to actually follow the mother when she's walking through the forest. On the subject of Okapi calves, and this is kind of like the coolest part of Okapi, in my opinion. So when Okapi are born after a 13-month gestation, that means that the mother is pregnant for about 13 months, so a little bit longer than humans. She gives birth to a miniature replica. The babies look exactly like the adults, except they have a long neck mane, kind of like what a horse has. A horse has typically a much longer mane, but they have a very, very short, only a couple inches long mane that they eventually lose as they get older. But these babies, they will be born, and the baby will find a space under a log or between buttress roots of a tree and kind of create its own little nest or hiding spot. It doesn't put leaves or twigs or anything to make it a nest, but it's kind of just like more of a hiding spot, and it will stay there for the first 2 months of its life. And it actually does not come out of the forest to see the mother doesn't visit the nest, is what I was trying to say. The mother doesn't visit the nest to visit the baby. What she actually does is she calls the baby through a technique called infrasound. She uses infrasonic communication, which it's these low, deep rumbles that humans cannot hear. Their main predator of leopards cannot hear. Only the baby can hear it. And there's a few animals that actually use this strategy. Elephants, rhinos, giraffes, okapi, all of them communicate through infrasound. And so the mother, when she's out foraging, when she's out eating, doing her business, she'll communicate with the baby through infrasound and say, it's time to eat. So the baby will actually come out of the nest, come find the mom, nurse, eat, and then actually go back into the nest. And so that strategy, the mother not going to the nest and communicating through infrasound, reduces the chance that leopards will actually find the calf. And so that increases their likelihood of survival to adulthood. Another crazy technique, the weirdest technique, in my opinion, is their poop. So Okapi, they poop in little tiny pellets. And so the Okapi calf, when it's in this nest area for the first 2 months of its life, it will not poop. Scientists always say defecate. That's a fancy way of saying poop. But Okapi do not poop for the first 60 or so days of their life. And that's also to reduce the chances of leopards sniffing them out, because typically when you poop, it smells. And so they would be able to sniff out the poop. So the babies do not actually poop for the first 60 days of their life. Oh, and this is an example of some of the buttress roots. They're the big roots that stretch out of trees. And so they kind of find a little nest in the little nooks and crannies of those trees. This is a very quick video, but a leopard, that is their main predator. And they typically prey on the younger Okapi. They really don't try and attack or feed on the adult Okapi because the adult Okapi can survive. And so one of their survival strategies, if a leopard was brave enough to attempt an attack on an adult Okapi, they have really, really strong legs. I don't know if anyone works with horses or cares for horses, but horses, when they're spooked or nervous or scared, they'll give a really hard kick. Okapi are very, very strong, and they will kick a leopard off of it. Or if for some reason they can't get it off, they'll just charge through the forest. They'll put their head down and charge straight through the forest, and then the leaves and the branches actually scrape the leopard off of them. And so this photo is showing some evidence of some scarring from a leopard attack on an adult. And then if all of these strategies go well for the first 2 months of the Okapi calf's life, then the calf will start following the mother. And here's an example of our camera trap footage. It's the first ever footage of an Okapi calf in the wild. We captured it on camera trap. And so we actually saw footage of that female, that mom Okapi, in December, when she was pregnant, and we believe she gave birth right after we collected that footage. And then we did not see the calf until about February. You can see the date on the bottom right of that screen, February 13th, 2018. So that when she gave birth, we suspect that the youngster kind of hid away in a nest between the buttress roots for about 2 months or 60 days. And then it started following her around, which is why we were able to capture it on video. And so a few of the threats to Okapi are slash and burn farming, gold mining, and poaching. So slash and burn farming is the idea that people will cut down a plot of land, a plot of forest. They'll cut down all the trees and then burn all of the wood and the leaves and everything, and that puts nutrients into the soil. But when they plant crops, those crops take all of those nutrients out, and then they have to do that year after year. So they're slowly cutting down more and more forest. And so that's a big issue. With Okapi, they need large, undisturbed tracts of dense rainforest like you see on the left in order to survive. They really don't need much. All they need is an intact forest ecosystem for them to survive, and then their population will bounce back. So we, with the Okapi Conservation Project, we reduce slash and burn farming through a few of our programs, which I'll get into later. Gold mining is another issue because the Democratic Republic of Congo is so rich in minerals like gold and diamond and cobalt. A lot of the tungsten that's used in your cell phone batteries or hybrid car batteries, all of that stuff is found in the ground of Democratic Republic of Congo. So people come in, they cut down the forest in order to dig up gold and do a lot of mining for diamonds or tungsten or coltan. And then with poaching, Okapi are not really targeted directly from poachers. Occasionally they will hunt in Okapi in some parts of their range, not really in the Okapi Wildlife Reserve where we work. But Okapi are bycatch, and that means snares, which are like tight ropes or metal ropes that are essentially traps that people set in the forest. And if an animal walks through it, it wraps around them and then they get stuck. But snares and poaching intended for other animals, sometimes Okapi get caught in those snares and then they can succumb or die from those poaching traps and nets and snares and stuff like that. So when Okapi Wildlife Reserve was started in when the Okapi Conservation Project was started in 1987, you can see a map of the Democratic Republic of Congo on the left, the DRC, there's Africa, DRC smack dab in the middle in the green. And then on the right, you can see a close-up DR Congo. The red box is where the Okapi Wildlife Reserve is, that green spot inside the red box. And then the range of the Okapi is in orange here. But we started the Okapi Conservation Project in 1987 as an effort to protect the Okapi and its habitat in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In 1992, so just 5 years later, we, along with other nonprofits and the government of DRC, helped establish the Okapi Wildlife Reserve, which is this green spot inside of the red box. It's about half the size of New Jersey, if anyone is familiar with the size of New Jersey. It's about 13 or 14,000 square kilometers. So it's really, really big. It's a huge protected area, and it's a lot of space to cover. And we believe it has the highest density or population density of Okapi throughout their entire range, which is why that area was selected as a protected area. And so we have Okapi Conservation Project is a staff that's grown to about 45 people. This is not all of our staff. We have several locations. We have 5 locations in and around the Okapi Wildlife Reserve where we work. And the infrastructure, the roads are really, really bad. What would normally take a 2-hour trip here in the US or Canada or even Italy. I know we have some guests from Italy. What would take 2 hours to get from one place to another will take 2 or 3 days in the reserve. So it's very rare that all of our staff are together for one photo. So this photo was taken several years ago on World Okapi Day. But we have a dedicated group of 45 staff members that implement a lot of our partnerships and our programs to ensure the Okapi has an incredible place to continue living. So in the top left, that is a group of rangers or eco guards from ICCN. ICCN stands for the Institute in Congo for the Conservation of Nature. It's their government authority, it's their government group that is tasked with protecting all of the protected areas in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we work very closely with them. They are dedicated rangers that go out on patrol on foot, removing the snares that are threatening Okapi, making sure that people are not going into the forest illegally, making sure that any illegal gold mining is stopped and removed from the area. They arrest poachers that are in the forest. And so they're dedicating their lives, risking their lives really, because a lot of these poachers are armed, risking their lives for the protection of Okapi in these protected areas. So we work very closely with them, and we have to share a lot of gratitude with them because they are the ones dedicated in risking their lives to protect Okapi. To address slash and burn farming, we have an agroforestry program where we provide and work with 500 farmers. We provide them seeds to actually start their gardens, start their plots of land to grow a lot of food for their families, or any surplus food they can actually sell in the local markets to generate a lot of income. So they don't have to rely on illegal activities like mining or poaching to generate any income for their families. This is a very impoverished area. Food security is a big issue. A lot of people don't have enough food to eat. So we are, through agroforestry, we're providing that food security for people and that empowerment and that capacity building, really giving them the training and the tools they need to grow their own food successfully and increase their crop yields. Increase the number of plants that they can grow, increase the types of the plants that they can grow, and ensuring through different fertilization techniques, natural fertilization techniques, ensuring that they stay on one plot of land year after year so that they don't have to cut down a new plot of land every year. And it saves them a lot of work and effort, and it saves the forest. So it's a win-win-win situation all around. On the bottom left, we work very closely also with a lot of women in the reserve, because women are typically are the more forward-thinking of the people in the Congo. They tend to think very much into the future. and they understand the complexities of conservation and the importance of protecting the forest for both the benefit of Okapi and people. And so we have livelihood improvement programs where we provide opportunities for these women. We provide them with the materials and the training that they need to make any items to start their micro enterprises, to start small businesses in order for them to generate income for their families, to pay for their schools, because all their schools are private. So you do have to pay tuition from primary school all the way up through secondary school and college. They don't have public education opportunities that are covered by taxes. So all schools are private. So you do have to pay for your tuition. So the money that they generate from selling their items that they're making in the markets goes to pay for their their children's school fees, or their healthcare costs, or if it's anything that they need to put a roof on their house, or whatever they need to use their money for. The idea is to improve their livelihood so they can focus on conservation and make conservation focused decisions. And then we also work very closely with kids. We developed the conservation curriculum that's throughout all of Congo. And so we work with a lot of teachers to develop conservation curriculum from first graders all the way through 12th graders. And it's sustainability focused, conservation focused, to really expose children to the incredible wonder of Okapi and the reason that we need to protect the forest for the benefit of Okapi and people. And so exposing kids to these educational opportunities and getting them involved with planting trees for reforestation projects, it really gets them connected with the purpose of, with the reason that we're protecting the rainforest and just how cool Okapi are. And so in addition to all of this, we have a camera trap program where we set out camera traps. We're looking for presence or absence of animals just to get an idea of what's out there right now. And so we set up camera traps in what this is called, in Congo, we call it an Edo, EDO, but in other countries, in the US or Canada, maybe even Italy, they're typically called glades or meadows sometimes. It's a natural clearing in a forest. It typically attracts a lot of wildlife. So we set up cameras around the perimeter of this Edo or this glade or meadow to really see what animals are there. And so I'm going to replay this video. This is an Okapi that's just wandering through the Edo, searching for stuff to eat, probably passing through because it's a little bit easier to walk through a meadow than a forest, maybe to get to a different section of the forest. Maybe looking for food, but they're very quiet and unassuming animals, and they're just a gorgeous thing to look at. But then we also get Bongo, which typically, you tend to see Bongo in zoos more often than Okapi. They share the same habitat. They are distantly related to Okapi, but they're also found in the same habitat. Bongo, this is a black and white image or footage from a night camera, but they're this gorgeous golden brown with these very thin white vertical stripes along their side with these long horns out of the tops of their heads. And the young ones that you can see in this still image right now, they have not grown their horns yet. But you typically see Bongo in zoos more common than Okapi. I think there's almost 30 zoos in the United States that have Okapi. There's one zoo in Italy that has Okapi. But overall in Europe, I think there's about 30 zoos as well. I do not think there's any Okapi in zoos in Canada. It might be a little bit too cold up there. But that's one of the things that we recommend you do is visit Okapi so you can, at a zoo that's near you, so you can get a sense of wonderment and how cool these animals are. Then we also get lots of videos on forest elephants. So recently, the African elephants were separated into two distinct species. This is just as of last month. The International Union for Conservation of Nature separated the African savanna elephant from the African forest elephant because they're two very different animals. And it was just recently that they classified them as two different species. So the forest elephant, they tend to be a lot smaller. They tend to be a little bit darker in coloration. They have 5 toes on their back foot instead of 4 toes like savanna elephants. Their tusks tend to point straight down instead of out and curving upward. And they're ivory, their tusk ivory is much, much denser, which makes them much more valuable to poachers that are trying to kill them and take their ivory. And so the elephant population has actually dropped significantly in the past several years. And that's another animal that we're working to protect. We use Okapi as an umbrella species because the Okapi is it's a protected species. It's a very respected species in the Congo. And so we're using the idea of protecting the entire forest for Okapi to benefit all the other animals like elephants, like Bongo, like chimpanzees that share the forest home with Okapi. And forest buffalo, which is what these are. So this is a large family group of forest buffalo. You can see all the females to the right and the youngster, and then the male is that one on the left. He has his harem that he's protecting, probably searching, looking for any signs of danger. These are animals that you do not want to encounter in the forest. I think that would be a little bit terrifying because I do not want to encounter a buffalo in a forest where I have nowhere to run. But they are incredible animals, and we get so much footage on forest buffalo. So what can you do to help protect Okapi? And so it's very, because they live in such a remote area, and a lot of our programs are focused on making sure that the communities that share the habitat or live around the habitat with Okapi are protecting the forest. So what we started to get the global audience involved, everyone around the world, is World Okapi Day, which is October 18th every single year. Regardless of the day of the week, it's always October 18th. And we work with zoos around the world, people around the world, to really develop a lot of celebrations and awareness around Okapi. Because one of the biggest issues that we're noticing is that so many people don't know about Okapi. And if you don't know about Okapi, you won't know how to protect them or what you can do to help protect them from the other side of the world. So we created World Okapi Day as kind of an awareness program to help people learn about Okapi, that they are an actual animal. They're their own distinct species. They're not a hybrid of a giraffe and a zebra. They're their own evolutionarily special animal. They are not a hybrid. And just so many people don't know about them. Part of World Okapi Day's purpose is to create that awareness around them, to teach people about them and what they can do to help. So how can you help Okapi? We always recommend that you visit your nearest zoo with Okapi. I know there might not be a zoo that's close to you, but I have a firm belief that when you see an Okapi in person, when you learn about Okapi, they instantly become one of your favorite animals, if not your top favorite animal, maybe like your top 3 favorite animals. I know they're my favorite, and also Jesse. But I always say that they're the coolest animal you've never heard of. And once you get to know about them, all the cool facts about how they communicate through infrasound, how the youngsters don't poop for the first 60 days of their life, how they can actually pull their eyeballs into their skulls, their tongues can reach every part of their body, they exude an oil from their skin to help give them a little waterproofing, they have a sticky substance that they leave behind that comes out between their toes. And so you can actually, males and females can actually track each other based on the sticky substance that they leave behind in their footprints. They're the coolest animal you've never heard of. And once you learn about them, once you see them in person, and if the zoo has the opportunity to allow you an encounter with an Okapi, that's even better. And so we always recommend that you visit your nearest zoo with Okapi in order to gain a sincere appreciation and understanding and love of them, because that will then initiate you or develop an interest to actually help them and do something that would benefit the species. We also recommend recycling your old cell phones and electronics. I talked a little bit about mining for coltan or for cobalt and tungsten. Coltan is what's used in a lot of the hybrid car batteries or in your cell phones or laptops. It's always best to keep your cell phones as long as possible, and then when it finally dies, to recycle it, because in theory that reduces the need, because they can reuse all of those metals in the phone, so they don't have to mine nearly as much in the Congo. In theory it works. We recommend it because it's always good to recycle anything. I think the demand for cell phones is increasing so much in electronics and hybrid. I don't know how much it's reducing the pressure on the environment, but it is always good to recycle your old cell phones and electronics. We also recommend that you host a fundraiser through your class to support our programs. You can support our programs. We've had several people do lemonade stands just to raise money for Okapi Conservation Project. There's people on Instagram that make little Okapi molds that they sell and donate a portion of the proceeds back to Okapi Conservation Project to support all of our programs. You can do a collection with your class to raise money from all the kids' families to support the programs. Anything that you can do to support our programs would be wonderful. And then I think the easiest thing that anyone can do is just to tell your friends and family about Okapi. We were talking a little bit about how really no one knows about Okapi outside of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So many people don't know about them. And that's the first step to making change or protecting an animal, is to teach people about it. They have to know about it if they're going to work to save it. They have to know about it, and then they have to develop a love and appreciation for the animal, and then they're going to start saving it. So the first step, the easiest step, the free step, is to tell your friends and family about Okapi and do more research on them and just develop a love for Okapi and annoy all your family and friends about how much you love Okapi, because that's what I do. With that, I am finished with my presentation. So I am going to stop sharing, and I think we're going to take a few questions from the audience.
Fantastic. Lucas, what a fun program. I know when you mentioned that the Okapi can hit every part of their body with their tongue, I was trying to get my elbow. It's been years since I've
I cannot do that.
Too bad. It was a valiant effort.
Yeah.
We have over 18 full classes joining us on YouTube in addition to our live group. So
wow, nice. Excellent. Hello, YouTube.
Yeah, it's been crazy this week. We've had so many people welcome in. We've got a group in India tuning in today as well.
Nice. Excellent. Welcome from India.
Yeah, we're going to dive in with questions for our live groups. Give you guys a minute to put your thinking caps on. And I'll take one from Madam Stephanie joining us in Milton, Ontario. Her class was really interested in your camera trap setup.
Okay.
How many camera traps do you guys have set up in the woods?
Well, that's funny that you asked that. Well, we're in the process of bringing more camera traps to Congo, just because camera traps have a limited lifespan. Usually, especially in the rainforest, only about 2 to 3 years. So we had almost 30 camera traps there to begin with. And it's very difficult to get camera traps in Congo. Or like to purchase them in the country. And if you can purchase them in the country, they're insanely expensive. It's much cheaper to buy them here and then fly over there to bring them. So before COVID, we had almost 30 camera traps, but they're slowly dying one by one. And so on our next trip over there, we are going to bring several more camera traps. We're hoping to have a minimum 30 at all times, but hoping for more. At some point in the future, we're going to do a range-wide survey when it's a little bit safer. I didn't get into the security issues because it's very dangerous where we are. I'm happy to get into that if anyone wants to, but I might have to sugarcoat it a little bit because it can be pretty bad. But we're hoping to do a range-wide survey at some point once security returns.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that the camera trap would die after 2 or 3 years. Anytime anyone works in the rainforest, it's like the boots are gone, your tarps are gone, like nothing lasts, because it's a very interesting environment.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, great first question, guys. I'm going to head to Ms. Gilman's class. They're joining us in Manitouich. Come on in and take us away, Ms. Gilman.
Okay, we have a couple of students behind me. We also have your screen share on. So,
hello.
I don't see anybody. I'm kind of by myself in the big room. We had a question. How tall are these Okapi anyway? We're kind of trying to figure out how tall.
Yeah, so it all depends on how, just like humans, it depends on how straight they stand up. And so when an Okapi is fully standing as tall as they can, males will be between 5 and 6 feet. Females will be between 6 and 7 feet. Females are typically a little bit bigger because they need to carry the calf. They tend to weigh a little bit more because they have to carry all those extra nutrients to nourish their calves. But the males are a little bit smaller, between 5 and 6 feet. And then females, when they're standing fully tall, then they're 6 to 7.
What a huge animal. I was saying to some of the classes before we got underway that they're one of the last described large mammals in the world.
Yes.
The science didn't even catalog these guys until after 1900, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so they've been known by the indigenous communities and the people in Congo for several millennia. I mean, they've always known about them, but they were first described by scientists in 1901. So that was one of the last major mammals described by Western science. But I mean, the indigenous communities and the people of Congo are like, we've known that this was here the whole time. but that was the first time that they were described by science in 1901.
There was a story like that. I think in Madagascar, they found a new lemur a couple of years ago, and like basically there was this village they came to, and like they'd had them for pets for like hundreds of years. Like, we know these guys, but it's still just fascinating to think that most of the world again had no conception of this. Until the last 100 years.
Well, I mean, they're so reclusive, and I didn't even get into this. And when you're walking through the forest, they're so cryptic and reclusive. You never see them in the wild. My boss has been working in Congo for 34 years. He has never seen one in the wild. I've only been there a handful of times over the past 5 years. I've never seen one in the wild. Really, the only time you're going to see one is either through a camera trap or at a zoo.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Very cool. They're such fantastic creatures. By the way, top 3. We'll have to address your other top 2 at the end.
Okay. Oh gosh.
Let's head to the Smith Smarties joining us in Stratford. That's a lot of S's. One of my favorite towns in the world. Come on in, guys.
Hi. We were wondering, how long does it take for the babies to become adults, and how old do they become as adults?
Okay, so with the babies will stick around with the mom about a year and a half. That's something that we're still actually learning, and we're learning that from captive okapi in zoos. And that zoos typically make the decision based on behavior, because they'll start to see some aggression between the mother and the calf, the growing calf. And so they'll take that as cues to actually start separating them. So that's where we kind of get that knowledge. We're really not sure based in the wild, because they're never seen. So we estimate between a year and a half when the calf actually leaves the mother. But okapi can live to be 20, 25. The oldest known okapi on record is actually at White Oak Conservation Center in Yulee, Florida, just about an hour north of me. And his name is Romakari, and he is 32. I think he's 32. I think he's a year younger than me. I think he's 32.
Okay.
I always forget.
No one's here to challenge you on.
Yeah. Hopefully no one from White Oak is watching. Otherwise, I would feel bad.
Any letters in the mail afterwards. Oh, God. Mr. Bocce, I'm going to come to you in just 2 seconds, but I love this question from Ms. Schmidt. They're joining us in St. Albert, Alberta. They want to know, how fast can okapi run? So when they're dragging that leopard through the bush to get him off their back.
They can run, what was it? We looked this up for my last presentation, and I cannot remember it because we had the same question. I do not know, but I can...
Okapi running. This is like my fun Google thing in the background that I get to do sometimes.
37 miles per hour is what Google is saying.
I want to know how they measure this. Like, is there a big treadmill that someone just
guess, I don't know. I'm sure the speed would differ based on whether or not they're in the forest or if they're in an open area. I'm sure when they're in the forest, they can't run that fast. I think the main thing with the forest is when they run through the forest, all the branches are taking the leopard off, and I'm sure the leopard gets injured at some point. But yeah, they can run pretty fast, and they're this big moving body that's running fast when they gallop. I've seen them run a few times in zoos.
It's fascinating.
It's pretty fast.
One of the things, I guess, the closest analogy for a lot of our classes in Ontario is a moose. Like the fact that this huge animal the forest, where as a person, if we saw it, we'd be like, I'm not going in there, that's too thick. And these fantastic animals do it. Anyway, very, very cool and great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Schmidt. All right, Mr. Bocce, come on in our GDSD class.
Hi. Liam in my class would like to know what the lifespan of an okapi is in the wild.
Oh, that we're really not entirely sure in the wild because they haven't been studied that much. But based on captivity, they can live to be 20 or 25. But the oldest okapi that we know of is Romakari, like I mentioned earlier, at White Oak, and I think he's about 32. But they typically live to be about 20, 25, probably a little bit more than that, maybe like 25, I would say, closer to 25.
It's kind of interesting, actually. They're a little bit less, they have a shorter longevity than I would have expected given their size.
Yeah.
The bigger animals can live substantial periods of time.
Yeah, I know Romakari is way past his expected lifespan.
Right.
And so,
Pampered old man and the...
Yes. Oh, he's pampered, I'm sure.
Miss Fung's class, grade 3s, come on in. We'll go to Miss Monk in just a second. Come on in, Miss Fung.
Hello. My grade 3s would like to know, besides leopards, do okapis have many other predators?
No, really not. Not at all. It's pretty much only leopards. There's really no other big predator that fills that role other than leopards in the rainforest. I guess you could technically occasionally say humans, because I'm sure if okapi are caught as bycatch, And if you're in such an impoverished area, you're not going to let that meat go to waste. So I'm sure people would eat okapi. But as far as animals as their natural predators, leopards are the exclusive ones.
And the guys, time flies and you're having fun. We're at the 40-minute mark already. Wow. I'm going to go to Miss Monk in a minute, take a couple more questions from YouTube, but I did want to share this for you, Lucas. This is from our student in India about how much they love the session on this.
Yes.
Way to go.
That's what I love. Yes. My goal is to make people fall in love with Okapi.
You have succeeded.
If only I could take people to see Okapi.
I know, but we need to get you to see one first. I mean, you got
yes. Yeah, I need to see one first. I see them in zoos all the time, but
I'm trying to think. You made me sad. I was like, oh yeah, we don't have one in the Toronto Zoo where I am. It's a little bit. It is a little too chilly here sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I mean, you have pandas.
We did have pandas. They're gone now.
Oh yeah, they left. That's right. I did remember hearing that.
Okay, we got a great zoo. It's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Monk's class, come on in, and then we'll take a few from YouTube to wrap up. That mic. There you go.
So our question, we noticed on your camera, on your video cameras, that the Okapi are always on their own. So do Okapi live like on their own primarily, or do they live in groups?
Yes, so they are solitary, almost exclusively solitary, unless it's a male pursuing a female to mate, or if it's a female taking care of a calf that's still following her around. That's really the only time that you'll see them together. There are some zoos that have, and it depends on their behavior too, because just like people, animals have different personality traits. And so there are some that will get along with others, and some zoos and conservation centers have been successful at keeping multiple Okapi together without any aggression. But in the wild, you typically do find them only solitary. And that's, I think there was one time on a camera track where we got a photo of a female and an older calf. And then we have the video of the female and the youngster. And then I didn't have it in my presentation, but we did have a video of a female walking by the camera and then a male walking by 5 minutes after, because we assume he was pursuing her.
5 minutes after. He keeps his distance. He's like,
well, if their ranges are several square kilometers wide, to be following behind a female only 5 minutes after that, he's pursuing her very closely.
I like the context for different animals in the world. This is so fantastic. Journey. I got two more questions before we wrap up. One is, actually, I love this question. Mr. Pui's class wants to know, why are they called Okapi to begin with? Is there a indigenous name there that led to that?
Yes. So Okapi. So their scientific name is Okapia johnstoni, and so their Okapi is derived from Okapia, the genus name of their scientific name. And so Okapia it comes from the indigenous word oapi, O''API is how it's typically spelled in English. And so that is an indigenous name, Oapi, that's what they call it. And then Johnstoni comes from Sir Harry Johnston, who is the English explorer that actually discovered him, or identified, I don't want to say discovered, I don't like that word, because they had been known, who first classified it as an unknown species to science in 1901. So Okapia comes from the indigenous name Oapi, and Johnstoni comes from Sir Harry Johnston, who is the Western scientist who discovered him.
Does Oapi translate to anything? Is it like the zebra giraffe thing of the
not that I'm aware of, not that I've heard of, but it could.
We'll have to find out for our third podcast with you.
Yeah.
My final question, I'm going to bring this up on the screen. I shared this on our YouTube chat bar as well. If you want to find out more, again, this is a 25-minute amazing journey into the Okapi Conservation Program, all that Lucas does and the team there. But check out their website below. So much to learn. It's so exciting. And I'm curious, I think I asked this last time, the Okapi stuffed animal behind you, can you get that through this thing? Where do you get one of those? You guys.
So you can get them at your local zoo that has Okapi.
Okay.
We do not sell them online. We need to beef up our web store. We are working on that. But I would love to start selling Okapi plush animals. And I will say I probably know a little bit too much about plush animals. There were 3 different companies in the US that were making them. Two of them, I think, stopped making them because I guess they weren't selling enough. I don't know why they stopped making them. So there's only one company making Okapi plushies now,
Okay. Well,
that I know of, at least.
We'll have to tap them because they're very exciting.
Yeah.
hopefully our classes get the chance to follow all your advice and home. That was fantastic. And Lucas, thanks for the fantastic program today. This was great.
No problem. I had a blast.
Awesome. Well, as you know from our first program together, what we do at the end of every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our teachers to say a big thank you and farewell. So Ms. Gilman, Ms. Bocce, Ms. Mung, thank you so much for joining